Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. Today I'm going to be reviewing for the second time tonight Transformers Rise of the Beast. You asked me why the second time because I just recorded an episode with this review and I didn't like it. Not the movie, my review of it. So for the first time, I think actually, or the first time in a long time, I scrapped that one and we're going to do a do-over. I just didn't like the way the review came off for some reason. I just didn't like it. So I got rid of it. So it's my show. I get to do that. So anyway, this is a movie podcast where I discuss and review movies new and old. So again, I'm going to be reviewing Transformers Rise of the Beast. So as I stated previously, I'll restate it again. So obviously, if you know the history of the Transformers movies, you have the Transformers story, you have the toys, then the animated series in the 80s, the animated film from the 80s, and then, of course, the live-action films produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by Michael Bay, starting with 2007's Transformers and ending his run with 2017's The Last Knight. So then, after Michael Bay moved on from directing them, we had 2018's Bumblebee, and now this film, Transformers Rise of the Beast. So this film was directed by Steven Caple Jr. I know his work from directing Creed 2. I know he's directed other things as well. I haven't seen any of his other work, but Creed 2 I have seen. Now this film is set in 1994, which is 7 years after the events that take place in Bumblebee. So as we see this film, it starts with a prologue, and there is a battle between the Maximals and robots from Cybertron. So they're battling to protect what is called the Transwarp Key. And Unicron is a planet-eating god that obviously he gets fuel from eating planets. So it's world destruction. You know, your version of Thanos, if you will, destroying worlds as he goes. But Unicron is trying to get this, so the Transwarp Key is taken by the Maximals and hidden on Earth and broken into two parts. So they want to keep the Transwarp Key away from Unicron to prevent him from destroying more worlds. So that's the prologue of the film. Then you come to 1994. You're introduced to Noah Davis, and when you see him, his family, he lives with his little brother and his mom, struggling to make ends meet. He's a former military person that's trying to get a job. As the movie opens, he's trying to interview for a security company, does not get that job, which further puts financial stress on the family. The mom is working and trying to go to school, and his little brother has sickle cell, so he's dealing with a serious condition that requires intensive treatment, and of course that costs a lot of money that they don't have. So Noah ends up taking an offer from a friend of his to steal a car. So it's a silver and blue Porsche. So in the process of stealing that vehicle, he discovers that that vehicle is not actually a vehicle. It is a transformer by the name of Mirage, who's voiced by comedian Pete Davidson. And that sets the events in motion for this particular film. So the other main character is introduced is Elena, played by Dominique Fishback. So she is an intern at a museum on Ellis Island, and it turns out that the Transwarp Key is there at the museum. So the first set piece that gets set up is an attack by the Cybertron robots to attempt to get the key, and then a battle ensues between Mirage, and then of course we get the appearance of Optimus Prime. So the thing that's interesting about this film is with the Optimus Prime characters, obviously he's the main through line through all of these films, and of course voiced by Peter Cullen, who's voiced him all the way back to the cartoon. So he's the constant character in all of these films. One of the things that's really good about it is they talk about in this film, since it's a prequel to the Michael Bay films, you have Optimus Prime's distrust of humans. He doesn't want to work with humans. He thinks humans are a liability, which is obviously something you don't see in the Michael Bay Transformers films. So you get to see kind of the setup of where Optimus Prime evolves with his interaction with humans, being on Earth. And again, the hunt is for this transwarp key to keep them from getting to Unicron. So as the movie progresses, like I said, there's a lot of action sequences, and the movie, as I stated a few minutes back, is a serviceable sequel to Bumblebee. So Bumblebee, I think, is a better movie. I think you get a great performance by Haley Steinfeld. She's great in the film, set in the 80s, so I'm an 80s kid, so that hooks me in. I think that movie is better. This movie, like I said, is serviceable. And if you were to ask me, and usually in my reviews I'll talk about what I didn't like about the movie and what I did like about it. The question of what I didn't like is kind of tough to answer. I'm going to get to the third act and the climax in a minute, because I think my opinion is a bit different than a lot of reviews that I've seen before I've even jumped on to do this review. But again, what I didn't like about it, I don't. There's really nothing I can pinpoint to say that I didn't like. I mean, to be honest, it's a Transformers movie, so I don't know what my expectation would be. I always look for the movie to be good, but I mean, this is the seventh Transformers movie. I mean, there's only a level of things that they can do to make it different. And like I said, there's nothing here that I didn't like. I didn't find the movie slow. I didn't find it. I found it entertaining. I think it just doesn't, for me, I guess, it doesn't rise to the level of just a high level film, in the sense that just I'm super involved, and it's tough because, like I said, I think serviceable is actually the best term I can use for it, and I know that sounds like a put down, and it's not really, because like I said, I liked the movie. I liked it. I guess it's that I didn't love it. But my thing is, I don't know if I love any Transformers movies. I really liked the first one that Michael Bay did, and I really liked Bumblebee. Do I love any of these movies? I don't know if I love any of them. I think I have different levels of how I enjoyed them. So for me, it's a kind of a different criteria for this type of movie. So like I said, and that's why I can't really say I didn't like. Look, if you don't like Transformers movies, you're not going to like this movie at all, and you wouldn't be apt to see it anyway. But for me, when you're doing these, it's just about, was the movie entertaining? And it is. I just don't, and I think part of the issue is we're at the seventh movie, so there's only like I said, there's only so much they can do, and with that being a hindrance, I thought they did a pretty good job. So serviceable to me is not a put down or an insult in any way. It's a compliment. I think for what it is, and like I said, Bumblebee was a pleasant surprise. So this movie, I think, does a good job. It's fun. It's a popcorn movie. I took my 9-year-old to see it. I mean, for that, I think it's great for that. So I want to talk about the climax in the third act. So as a lot of these movies do, this movie ends up going to Peru. So we find out that the transwarp key was split in two, and the other half of it is in Peru. So of course, everybody's going there. The Cybertrons, Optimus Prime, the Maximals, all going there to, try to get the key first. And of course, for Optimus Prime, if they can get the key together, the biggest thrust there at the end is they can get back to their home planet and hopefully save it. So that's a big deal for them, and of course, save the Earth as well. So there's kind of a battle there, because Noah and his group, Noah and Elena, want to get it, destroy it, so it saves the Earth. So there's kind of a conflict that's going on there. So there's, that sets up the climax of the film. The third act takes place in Peru, which I thought was a cool kind of place to do it. And I've seen online, which is interesting, I think a lot of people have really honed in on the climax as being very disappointing. And one of their main criticisms of this particular movie, I don't agree. I thought that was actually my favorite part of the movie. I enjoyed the climax. I enjoyed the third act of the movie. The big battle, because there's always going to be a big battle or a bunch of battles culminating in a big one. I thought it was well done. I thought it was a lot of action. The things that the human characters have to do, I thought were well done. A lot of action, excitement. So that was actually my favorite part of the movie. So I don't agree with the criticisms of the climax. So I don't know I didn't go deep into the reviews. because I don't like to do that before I do my show. I always read them after just to see. I just saw blurbs of people, more than one person, complaining about the climax. I did have an issue with it, so I disagree with that position on this particular movie. But again, for me, I think it's a serviceable film. I think it's enjoyable. Like I said, my 9-year-old son had a great time there. So based on that, I'm really going to give Transformers Rise of the Beast 3.5 stars out of 5. So again, on that scale, usually a 4-star review is a movie I would watch over and over and over again. I wouldn't watch this movie over and over again, but I'd probably watch it again once or twice. It's a good, entertaining film. Like I said, it clocks in at about 2 hours and 7 minutes. And one of the main strengths I will say about this movie, which I think goes along with Bumblebee as well, my main issue with the Michael Bay films is that as those films progressed, they got longer and longer and more bloated. I mean, you had one of them, and I forgot which one it was, that you're clocking in at 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. No. This is Transformers. You don't need it creeping on 3 hour. No, that's too much. At least I think that's too much. And I think what both Bumblebee and this film does well is it keeps it tighter. This movie clocks in at 2 hours and 7 minutes. I know Bumblebee was a shade under 2 hours, which I think is perfect. If they're going to continue to make these movies going forward, that's the template they should follow. Because especially with the difficulty that becomes in telling more Transformer stories, because you've done 7 movies, if you're going to do more of these, keep it tight. Keep it, maybe hour 50 to 2 hours is plenty for a Transformers film. I think if you get longer than that, you're gonna lose me, because it's just too much. Because like I said, those Michael Bay ones towards the end were just, I couldn't even look. I'll give you a perfect example. I haven't reviewed any for the podcast, but I don't even remember what The Last Night was about. I don't remember. I know Anthony Hopkins is in it. I know there's. I have to watch it again. I think I watched it at home. I didn't see it in the theaters. And The Last Night, at least I kind of remember Age of Extinction, which was the one before that with Mark Wahlberg. I don't even remember what that was about. I just don't remember. So they got so just bloated and just, it's ridiculous. Epic should not be what a Transformers movie be. It should be a tight, fun, CGI-filled robots fighting in and out in a couple of hours, not dragging 2.5 hours. So again, enough of that soapbox. But again, this movie, like I said, clocks, I think it's 2 hours and 7 minutes. I think is a good time. So again, I'm going to give Transformers Rise of the Beast 3.5 stars out of 5. Again, on that scale, that's a movie I would watch a couple of times again. I wouldn't watch it over and over again. I don't think it's a classic, but it's a serviceable, enjoyable entertainment. And if you spend your money to go see it in the theaters, I think you'll have a good time. Again, this is a pretty simple one in the fact that if you like Transformers movies, you'll probably like it. If you're not a fan of it, you're not going to be interested and have any desire to watch it. So pretty straightforward. But again, I thought it was a decent film. Like I said, I don't really have anything super negative to say about it, other than it's just a serviceable story. And like I said, I think it's just because there's been so many of them, it's going to be tough for me to go, oh wow, this is something new, this is something different. So I think that's where my enthusiasm doesn't make me give it a higher review than 3.5. But again, that's not to say that it's not entertaining, that I didn't enjoy it. It just means to say that it's just at this point it really would take something unbelievable to like blow me away as far as something surprising or something that they haven't done before that would make it completely different. So that's really what that's about, not about the quality of the movie. But speaking of not doing anything surprising, the one thing that was very surprising, and I'll give a mild spoiler alert here. So if you haven't seen Transformers yet, click this off for about a minute and a half. I'll do this real quick and then we'll get back and then I'll wrap the show up. So I'm going to start right now. So at the end of the film, after all the, climax is done, Noah's back home in New York. He is back to trying to find a security guard job. He interviews with a gentleman at a place for security, and the actor Michael Kelly plays the person he's interviewing with, who's great in House of Cards, very good actor. So they're talking about him, and as the conversation progresses, Michael Kelly's character tells Noah, hey, I know what's up. I know what you were doing, and I know what you were doing with these robots. And of course, Noah's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't know what, he denies it. And of course, he's like, man, don't deny it. I already know what's going on. So he offers Noah an opportunity to join his group to fight and battle. So he puts a business card on the table. Noah turns the card over. And you're wondering what it could be, what's going on. And it's G.I. Joe. So obviously, if you're an 80s kid or even a 90s kid, you know what G.I. Joe is. That's a huge, another Hasbro property, toy, animated series. And of course, they've made a couple of live action films as well that haven't done very well. So that was the biggest surprise in this film, that they're teasing a crossover with Transformers and G.I. Joe. I don't know what form that's gonna take, but that was super surprising. So we'll see how that transpires. So anyway, again, I'm giving Transformers: Rise of the Beast 3.5 stars out of 5. So like I said, if it's playing in movies now, if you're a fan of Transformers, I say go ahead and check it out. And again, this is the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. I discuss and review movies, new and old. So thank you for checking out this episode. In the very next episode, I'm going to actually be doing a first here as a listener request. So I've always put the call out there to email me or send Twitter with it, and I finally got somebody that took me up on it. So I'll be reviewing a movie that they requested. So if you want a movie that you want me to review or discuss, you can always email the show at bendyourpodcast@gmail.com, or you can DM me on the Twitter page at Bend Your Ear Pod. So like I said, next episode will be a listener requested review. Not a new film, it's an older film. So stay tuned for that and check that out. So thank you for listening. I want to thank everybody that downloads the show. I want to thank everybody that I interact with on Twitter. It's great. It's always fun to talk movies and your thoughts about them. So that's great. I really appreciate it. I want to say before I sign off, this is the 5th anniversary. Actually, today is the 5th anniversary of the podcast. I started this podcast 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. And I just want to say, as I've said before, the reason I started it back in 2018 was I needed an outlet to fill me with joy and happiness. This is a time I was kind of struggling at work and not very happy and didn't really have a creative outlet. And I decided just to go for it and start the podcast. I'm like not knowing anything about how to podcast and just kind of winging it. And it's been a great ride. So I really appreciate it. So, I'm happy and I'm enjoying this ride, and I can't believe it's been the 5th anniversary of the podcast. So again, it's something I really enjoy, and I'm going to continue to enjoy doing it. So again, thank you for listening.